What up? I'm awake, I'm alive, relatively, and today I want to talk about the epic raid that Bungie released in D2 over the weekend. I know that normally when a raid finishes, I like to immediately make a raid guide, but things feel a little different this time, so I'm gonna share some thoughts first. If I decide to make a raid guide at all, that is. Not even sure if people want me to on this one. Anyway, let's rewind the clock real quick. When Bungie first revealed the upcoming epic raid, there was naturally a bunch of skepticism and critique from the community. We weren't really sure what exactly the epic raid even was. All we knew was that it was some kind of altered or tweaked version of the Desert Perpetual Raid, which originally launched back in July of 2025. Players were immediately annoyed that it wasn't a brand new raid, which hey, I also would have loved a brand new raid, but I think getting a 100% new one that soon after the release of Desert Perpetual just seems a little unrealistic on a timescale perspective. But yeah, there was much debating about the fact that this version of the raid would be giving away a world's first raid belt, because after all, as far as we knew, it was probably just going to be Desert Perpetual with maybe minor tweaks at best and no new encounters at all. Another heated argument that went on in the community, which is actually still going on right now, was Bungie's decision to include the not swap modifier in the epic raid. For those who don't know, that's a mechanic where if you swap loadouts in the middle of an encounter, the game would basically punish you by taking away your ammo and ability energy. Although, as it turns out, that mechanic didn't quite really work as advertised, and I have a lot to say about not swap, but we'll save that for a little bit later in the video. Anyway, at the end of the day, the community was hella iffy about the concept of the epic raid right from the get-go. And with the current state of the game being what it is right now, some notable D2 world's first raiders like Glad just decided they were going to completely skip out due to a variety of reasons, one of them being just a general lack of interest. Fast forward to the day of the epic raid, and here's what we got. While the base encounters of the raid remained similar to the original Desert Perpetual raid, there were definitely more layers of challenge added onto each encounter that I was not expecting. As I mentioned on Twitter, I was basically 100% expecting the epic raid to just be something along the lines of, "Teehee, encounters have champions now, guys, and there's an extra color of sand in the final encounter." And I'll admit, I was wrong. I will only ever speak for myself as a player, but I happened to enjoy most of the reworked encounters. One thing I found really interesting is that with the original Desert Perpetual raid, the thing most players struggled with were DPS checks. In the 3 encounters leading up to the final boss fight, most of the mechanics were not terribly difficult to figure out, but the bosses had kaiju level health bars, and most teams that failed did so because the DPS checks were too chunky. In the epic raid though, it was the exact opposite situation. DPS checks seemed to be nowhere near as bad in the epic raid, and the thing most teams struggled with, at least from my perspective anyway, was mechanics. I think the vast majority of times that my team failed an encounter, it was due to botching one of the many reworked mechanics that got thrown our way. To those of y'all watching this video who actually did play in the epic raid, which I'm sure is probably going to be a low-ass number, I'd be interested to know which you'd prefer, a DPS check heavy raid or a mechanics heavy raid. Again, the epic raid IMO was way more mechanics heavy, and I think I enjoyed that a little bit more. The final boss encounter of the epic raid was not what I expected at all. Again, I was just expecting minor tweaks, but what we got was an entirely new final boss encounter. That threw a lot of teams competing for world's first for a huge loop, as I suspect many of them were also not expecting a brand new encounter. Also, side note, I find it mildly hilarious that it took us, dear God, how long has the Destiny franchise been around for? 11 goddamn years for Bungie to finally be like, all right, that's enough. No more players making their screens entirely black for the day 1 raid race. Granted that it's only been kind of a problem in recent years, but still. Glad that we finally got that entire situation sorted out. Definitely a shame it happened after the time D2 had a raid race promotion with Twitch rivals, and half the streams ended up just being a freaking black screen bonanza, but oh well. By the way, all that community lore and more in my The Complete History of Day 1 Raid Racing in Destiny 1 and 2 video, which is maybe one of my favorite videos I've ever made, by the way. But I digress. The new final boss encounter, very mechanics heavy and wild, and also visually great. I definitely have my fair share of complaints with the current state of D2, but I'll always take comfort that, for as long as they're around anyway, the RAD, aka Raid and Dungeon team, and also the environment team at Bungie almost never miss. hilarious. Just between you and me, maybe we should let them take over the entire operation over there for a year or two. Just kidding. But sorta not kidding, but just kidding. Anyway, I've mentioned on this channel a few times in the past month or so that there's a lot of stuff in the game that I'd really like to see improved, like the portal, PvP, the implementation of new content, and so on. But yeah, I'll admit it. I liked the new final boss encounter a lot, and as a whole, I liked the epic raid. And it would appear I'm not the only one, which gives me some comfort because I'm sure that I'll have a bunch of people trying to fist fight me over saying that, even though I've been fairly critical of Bungie as of late. Man, oh man, though, I really wish things were different lately, because even though I think the Rad team did a great job with the epic raid, I feel like it almost doesn't matter right now. Again, I haven't seen the numbers, I'm sure they'll come out soon, but I'm sort of predicting that the total player count and total player completion count of this raid is gonna be low. Players are interested in new things, and even if the epic raid did have an all-new final boss fight and many reworked encounters, a lot of players still just saw this as Desert Perpetual Runback Weekend right from the get-go, rather than a new activity to care about, and probably decided right away that they just didn't really care. Which again, I understand, as I myself kinda felt the same way when they announced the damn thing to begin with. I'm really curious to know if Bungie plans on doing more epic raids in the future based on this one or not. I know some people out there probably have the mentality of, hey, if we're gonna get 2 raid races per year, I'd rather they both be new raids, not just version 1.0 and version 2.0 of the same raid. And hey man, I'm right there with you, but realistically, I have to imagine that raids take a long ass time to create, as they're basically the most complex and challenging content in the game, hands down. And that's probably why we don't get them at a rate of 2 brand new raids per year, because the last thing we'd all want would be for a new raid to come out and be rushed or goddamn terrible, because I truly feel that new raids are, again, with very few exceptions, the one part of D2 that always hits. So with that in mind, and I can't confirm this at all, but I have strong suspicions that our options are either A, 1 new raid per year, or B, 1 new raid per year, and on top of that, 1 epic raid per year. Again, I have no idea if that is the case, just a very strong suspicion. But if those actually are our 2 options, I feel like I'd rather take option B, provided of course that all future epic raids are using this current one as kind of a baseline, because again, at the risk of somebody reaching through the monitor and strangling me, I enjoyed the DP epic raid. And by the way, let's get this over with and talk about not swap real quick. What the hell are we doing out here, Bungie? Pick a lane. You want us to not swap loadouts in the raid, so you hit players with a not swap modifier that doesn't really do anything? If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically every team in the epic raid who cleared was probably 100% loadout swapping, myself included, because if you did it the right way, there wasn't a penalty. So basically, why wouldn't you do it? In short though, as long as you didn't change your aspect or fragments and you didn't change the stats of your armor with your loadout swap, then the game didn't penalize you at all. So the end result is players just getting weighed down with a useless modifier that doesn't really do anything and didn't really change anything. At this point, just let players loadout swap. I've definitely been a little wishy-washy on this topic in the past, but I've currently changed my tune pretty hardcore. It's fine. Let players have fun, let players get wacky with multiple DPS builds, and don't do modifiers like this anymore, especially because it doesn't really accomplish anything except annoy the remaining players who actually care enough to go do a day 1 raid. Also, give us revamped Wrath of the Machine already. The hell are we doing out here? But yeah, anyway, moving on. I think I'd be open for more epic content as long as it actually mixes things up to the level that we had in the Desert Perpetual. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad a lot of other people out there were also surprised by how it went over, even folks who were originally skeptical. I'm definitely looking forward to a bunch of other awesome games between now and the end of 2025, Arc Raiders in particular, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm really hoping that things shape up in December with D2 Renegades, because when my team and I got our clear on the final boss the other night,
just run as far away from as you can. Run as far as you can. I'm gonna turn back.
It really reminded me hardcore that the peaks of Destiny are just borderline unmatched core gaming memories. Here's hoping I get my wish with Renegades. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.